Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video on the channel today. In today's video, I brought along a good friend of mine, TTB Ravens Media, aka Makana, and we are going to do some rookie pro comparisons for the upcoming 2024 NFL Draft. Now, me and Makana each have taken about 7 or 8 draft prospects going into this draft, and we have analytically articulated a perfect comparison to an NFL player that you would definitely know. So I think to start the list, Makana, we got to go with quarterbacks. And to start that list, you got to go with Caleb Williams. So I'll start with Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams is a more athletic Aaron Rodgers. I think the thing that is so comparable between them, obviously their size. Caleb is about 6 foot, 205. Aaron Rodgers is about 6'1", 210, 215. So they're pretty even size-wise. But I think their play styles are also very similar in the sense that they have such an insane ability to extend plays, to get out of the pocket, to keep their eyes down the field, and just make some of the most ridiculous throws that you've ever seen. They both have insanely strong arms. They have good feet, as Chris Collinsworth points out occasionally, and they're just playmakers. And one thing that's so unique about Aaron Rodgers is that he is a gunslinger, but he was able to keep his interceptions down. Caleb might need to work on that a little bit, but honestly, I think my comparison, people have been saying Patrick Mahomes. I don't really think anybody's Patrick Mahomes. I don't think it's fair to compare anybody to the best quarterback in today's game. But I do think that he is probably a more athletic Aaron Rodgers.
I like it, and to add on, both weirdos off the field as well. So
This
I
guy,
think it works.
this guy. You don't like the pain and nails, I take it?
I don't like the loser attitude. That's what I don't like. Okay, I hate Caleb.
All right,
I'm
all right,
rooting for
all
his
right, Mister.
downfall. I hope the Bears never win a game, and I hope, just like Aaron Rodgers, he is the Bear killer. My first guy is Jayden Daniels, who a lot of people like, and a lot of people give this comparison, and I'll give my own twist on it. A lot of people, I've read this. I don't know why I've read this. I don't know how I've read this, but I've read Patrick Mahomes combined with Jalen Hurts, and I was like, that's stupid. And then I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? It's kind of right. If you take Patrick Mahomes' rushing and combine it with Jalen Hurts' passing, you kind of get Jayden Daniels. Where it's like, okay, yeah, he
This
can
guy.
kind of run and he can kind of throw, but he's not elite at either of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a little disrespectful. But at the same time, I'm not as high on Jayden Daniels as many people are. Like, I don't think that he's the number 2 overall pick in the draft. Realistically, I don't even think he should go top 5. I know he will because he's a quarterback, won the Heisman. I get it. But while your comparison is a bit disrespectful, I don't necessarily disagree with it completely. So I'll give you props for that. Let me now transition to the guy that I think should go second overall, which is Drake Maye. My comp for him is Justin Herbert. They're both really big. Drake Maye is 6'4". Justin Herbert's about 6'5", 6'6". They have wicked strong arms. And if you remember, Justin Herbert coming out of Oregon wasn't playing with a lot of NFL guys. Wasn't running the most pro style offense you've ever seen. But the throws were tantalizing, right? And obviously, he was the 3rd quarterback taken in his draft. Drake Maye is potentially going to be the 3rd quarterback taken in his draft, and I think he has the potential to be the best. I really like his arm strength. I really like his playmaking. I think both him and Justin Herbert play big. They stand strong in the pocket. They're big, strong athletes. So I think my pro comp for Drake Maye is probably Justin Herbert.
I like that one. I'm a big Herbert fan, so I don't know if Drake Maye to the Commanders will necessarily fix them because the Commanders are an absolute nightmare. But I do
Yeah.
agree that he is QB2 in the draft and he should go second overall. But my next guy is a quarterback, Michael Penix Jr. And Michael Penix is really difficult to find a comp for. I think the best one I can think of is just Brett Favre. Brett Favre, because one of the things that annoys me, I'll ramble for a second, but when you get a lefty quarterback, people feel like you have to compare them to a lefty quarterback, which I think is stupid. Like,
Mm,
the comps for him in modern NFL I keep seeing are Tua. It's like, that's just because Tua's a lefty. Like, they're drastically different. Michael Penix Jr. might have the strongest, he probably will have the strongest arm in the NFL when he gets there. It rivals Josh Allen, it rivals Patrick Mahomes. And he will just absolutely rip the football all game long. And that was Brett Favre. Like, Brett Favre was going to throw interceptions. Brett Favre was athletic, but he wasn't a runner. He would just kind of roll out of the pocket and just try and make something happen. That's kind of like Michael Penix, back in Indiana. Yes, he was a bit of a runner, but now it's like, he's a lot more cautionary due to the injuries, but he ran a 4.46 40-yard dash, or it's between 4.46 and like 4.52, which is very good for a quarterback. So he can roll out of the pocket. He's going to throw on the run. He's going to throw from the pocket, and he's just going to try and light up the other team's defense. And I don't know if I've ever watched a collegiate quarterback that's been more exciting than watching Michael Penix Jr. And that's with just his arm talent. He's on par with guys like Johnny Manziel and Tebow and Lamar Jackson, because the way he will just attempt these throws that nobody in their right mind would attempt, but he has the arm to get it there.
Yeah, no, I want to say the Tua comparisons are just lazy because Tua does not throw a good deep ball and Penix throws absolute moon balls. I mean, watching him launch the football last year at Washington was a beauty. It was a sight to see. Um, I like your comp, by the way, of Brett Favre. I think that's a good one. Because, again, like you said, Brett Favre was a good athlete, but he wasn't necessarily a running quarterback. But that dude could rip the football, and he put it into windows that only certain guys could get it in. I think Michael Penix is the same way. I never thought of Brett Favre, honestly, but I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, I kind of like it. It's pretty good. So let's go on to the last quarterback. Probably, I would say, the most controversial quarterback in this draft, and that's going to be J.J. McCarthy. My comp for him is Alex Smith. And you might be hearing that, and you're like, well, that's a little disrespectful, and I want to push back on it being disrespectful, because Alex Smith, at his peak, was a good quarterback when he was with the Kansas City Chiefs, and he had Andy Reid, and he had Tyreek Hill, and he had Kareem Hunt. He was a good quarterback. He's a borderline Pro Bowler.
Mm-hmm.
To say that J.J. McCarthy could get to that level, I don't think is crazy, but that also means that he would need good coaching. He would need good weapons. He would need a solid offensive line. Like, I don't think JJ is the guy you plug into a shit franchise and he just completely, he's not CJ Stroud, that what he did last year. That's not going to happen. JJ McCarthy could operate well in a good circumstance, but with also Alex Smith, his first few years in the league were not pretty because the Niners were not a very good team before they got Jim Harbaugh. So I think that's what you're looking for. I think that you're going to get with JJ McCarthy what you put around him. And again, is this guy going to light up the scoreboard? Is he going to be in contention for MVP? Probably not. But if you have a good team around him, you could be a perennial playoff team, and you could feel fine about where you're at quarterback.
Yeah, I think Alex Smith was a solid NFL quarterback, and that's the ceiling I think that I see from J.J. McCarthy. At his best, it's Alex Smith. At his worst is Zach Wilson. I don't necessarily think he is Zach Wilson, but that's kind of the situation that I see is just like an overdrafted quarterback that has some arm talent, which unfortunately, I don't think people recognize that first-round quarterbacks that aren't first overall are probably a 30% hit rate. And it probably drops to 10% in the second round. And so expecting all of these guys to turn into the comps that we're giving, right? There's no way this class has Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, Justin Herbert, and Alex Smith. Two of these guys are likely going to be horrible. Maybe it's JJ, maybe it's not. If JJ's good, it's Alex Smith. And that should be seen as a hit. That's a good draft pick if you get Alex Smith in the first round.
Yeah. And especially because he's not going to go, like you said, first overall. I think at highest he'll go fourth, that would be a real reach for me, but I don't necessarily think he's going to go that high. Here's a good one that I have for a player who I think could be an absolute superstar. Anybody heard of Marvin Harrison Jr.? He's only the consensus best player in this draft, not playing the quarterback position. And even if you consider quarterbacks, he might still be the best player. There's been a lot of comparisons to Marvin Harrison, one being his dad. And while I did consider that genetically, same name on the back of the jersey, he's faster than his dad. And he's a better athlete than his dad, I think. And his dad, that's saying a lot because his dad is a Hall of Fame wide receiver who, previously held the single season receptions record. So he's no joke, right? I think if we're gonna make a modern comparison to Marvin Harrison, a guy that's playing in the NFL today, it would be CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb, Marvin's a little bit taller. He's 6'4", CeeDee's 6'2", but they're both, probably 200 pounds soaking wet. They both have taller, leaner frames. They're able to get in and out of cuts quick. I think Marvin is a little bit better after the catch than people are pegging him right now, because that's seen as like his number one weakness is, he's not a great yak guy. I think he's pretty good. I think that Kyle McCord probably wasn't able to get him the ball in ideal circumstances a lot. And obviously, his route running and his hands and his body control, that's the big thing that I think I see with CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is able to control his body quite like few receivers I've ever seen. So I think the body control, the hands, the route running, and then the good but not great yards after catch ability, I honestly think that CeeDee Lamb is a pretty good comp for him.
I think you're undervaluing CeeDee's after the catch ability. However, when you just look at the before the catch, I do like that comparison. I think Marvin Harrison will be better with the ball in the air, but a little bit worse after the catch. But
yeah,
I think that is similar guys that because Marvin may not be breaking 3 tackles after the catch, but his speed is going to, he just turns on the burners and he's able to just get by everyone. So it's not like he's Tyler Lockett after the catch where he's just falling to avoid contact. Like, he's going to catch and turn up the field, right? I think a lot of people think that you have to have, right? It's like in baseball, right? You want to have the 5-tool outfielder, but in reality, you don't need one. Yeah, it's nice to have a Mike Trout, but you could also just take Aaron Judge. He's not going to steal you bases. But you know what?
Right.
He's going to hit you a lot of fucking home runs. And Marvin Harrison Jr., he's not going to break 30 tackles, but you know what? He might get you 20 touchdowns. So, you know what? I think you'll take that. That's how good he is.
You will take that.
My wide receiver that I'm going to do is actually my wide receiver 2, and I'm going to do Rome Odunze. And Rome Odunze, a lot of people have as maybe wide receiver 3. Blasphemous people put him at wide receiver 4 or 5, but Odunze's spectacular. And my best comparison for him is DeAndre Hopkins, a guy that is not necessarily the fastest, is not necessarily the best route runner or crazy after the catch, but he has hands and he is going to catch the football, and he's able to utilize his body to separate enough to be able to get his hands on the football, and he's going to come down with it almost every time. Michael Penix Jr. to Rome Odunze was by far the best duo in college football last year. And I say this when Jayden Daniels and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas won the Heisman, essentially. But Odunze and Michael Penix got themselves to the championship game because in the big games against the Oregon Ducks, it was literally just, it's down the stretch, what's going to happen? And Michael Penix looked at Odunze and said, let's do this. And they just went back and forth, and they were able to win those games because they were the best duo in the country, and they could rely on that every single time.
Yeah, you look at the jump ball ability, that's DeAndre Hopkins. You look at the just glue for hands, that's Rome Odunze and DeAndre Hopkins. And like you said, you made the comparison with Michael Penix and Rome Odunze last year. That was Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins for years in Houston, right? Yeah. And honestly, even his first couple of years in Arizona. So I like the DeAndre Hopkins comparison. I think it's pretty good. But I'm going to talk about the actual receiver 2 in this class. I know you have Rome Odunze at 2. I have Mr. Malik Neighbors. And you know what? My comp for him is DJ Moore. Let me tell you why, right? Let me tell you why. Malik Neighbors is 6', 200. DJ Moore is 6', 210. They're the same size. Neighbors is a little faster. He ran a 4.3 540. DJ Moore, slow ass, ran 4.42. Obviously, that's still very quick. But they both are receivers that I think are really, really good against man coverage, right? It's going to be hard to cover either one of these guys because of their elite speed. They're really good deep ball threats. Not necessarily, I wouldn't say third down machines. Not guys I think that you're going to throw a jump ball to like you would a Rome Odunze. But I think that these guys have game-breaking ability. And if you have a quarterback and they're on the same page and they're able to, throw the ball deep, Because Jayden Daniels, as much as I don't love him, he threw a pretty good deep ball last year at LSU. Not to the extent of Michael Penix at all, but he threw a pretty good deep ball to Malik Neighbors. And obviously, that you're not just going to run by a lot of guys in the NFL. That's not realistic. But when you have the speed to get in and out of cuts, the way that DJ Moore and Malik Neighbors can, you obviously can stretch the field. And I think as long as he has a good quarterback that can get him the ball deep. I mean, we saw Justin Fields wasn't elite by any means, but when DJ Moore finally had a NFL caliber quarterback, he damn near broke the league. So I think DJ Moore is an excellent comparison for Malik Neighbors, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I actually really like that. I think I see a lot of people and they say like Jamar Chase or they say Justin Jefferson, but that's not his game. Like I think DJ Moore because Neighbors is kind of a truck after the catch, and that's DJ Moore. Like so, I think that's actually a really good comparison. Also, I think it like levels expectations because I think a lot of people are like Justin Jefferson, and it's like wait. Well, we can be comping guys to the best receivers in the league and just being like,
stop.
Especially guys that came in first. Like, first round, first pick, and dominate, like Justin Jefferson did his rookie year.
Yeah, exactly.
My next guy.
I was just going to say, I feel fine comparing Marvin Harrison to CeeDee Lamb because I think Marvin's just that good.
Yeah.
But like you said, for the rest of the guys, it's like, level expectations a little bit. Like, not all these guys are prime Justin Jefferson,
You say this. But for Keon Coleman, my comp is Jerry Rice. No, I'm just kidding.
That's hilarious. That's actually so fun.
No, Keon Coleman. I love Keon Coleman. For anybody that doesn't know, he's my wide receiver 3 in the class. I also have him over Neighbors. But when I was trying to think of a comp of a 6'4" player that has an elite, maybe generational catch radius, but was known in college for his after the catch and quick pass ability, it was very difficult because the comps I kept finding online were like Allen Robinson, and I was like, that's horrible. Like that excludes his after the catch ability and his athleticism, which I think people don't want to give him credit for because he ran a slow 40, but he looked great at the combine. And he's able to maintain his speed. My comp is Dez Bryant. Keon's a little bit bigger than Dez was, but my thought is Dez initially in his career could be utilized after the catch. He was very good at the quick stick routes, but you could also just throw it up to him and he could come down with those catches. And I think that's kind of what Keon Coleman is. Like, jump balls isn't necessarily his game. Like, that's not how you have to use him, right? He's not Mike Williams, where that's like you draft him, you use him as Mike Williams, jump ball guy. You can use him in all these different ways, and he's just going to be an absolute dog. He is not someone that's going to shy away from contact. He is going to run block. He's going to be physical. I think Dez Bryant was the best name I could come up with of a guy that did that in the last 20 years.
You're not wrong. I mean, I think Dez Bryant's a good comparison because if you remember, like Dez Bryant was returning punts, in his first couple years in Dallas. Like, he's for being that big, he's a really good athlete. And Keon Coleman, ignore the 40 time. For some guys, 40 time matters. Some guys like Keon Coleman, it's like he plays way faster. What do you run? 4.62 or something? Like, who cares?
And Dez ran 4.52.
Yeah, so I mean, Dez might be a little bit more athletic, but at the same time, it's like, big frame, good athlete. That's a rare breed in the NFL. This is one that's kind of a deep cut reference. It is, I would say, kind of the opposite of what we were just talking about. Guy that's smaller, guy that ran really, really fast at the combine. Maybe you're thinking of a specific name here, but Xavier Worthy. And you might be saying, well, what is Xavier Worthy's comp, right? People are saying John Ross, and I think that's a little disrespectful because John Ross was never, let's be real, he was never really an NFL caliber receiver. He ran really fast at the combine, got taken a pick before Patrick Mahomes, and then really didn't do anything. He had like 2 or 3 good games, right? This is a player that I think when we comp guys, we're really going to get, I guess, this is like fair, I guess. And he could definitely exceed this expectation, but I think J.J. Nelson is a good comp. Smaller, really, really fast receiver. J.J. Nelson, did he have the most lucrative NFL career? No, but he was a 400, 500-yard guy for a few years. I think Xavier Worthy acts best as a complementary piece to an offense, not so much like if the Bills now take they take Stephon Diggs' replacement and it's Xavier Worthy, I'd be like, oh, what? But if he went to a team with a good receiver or two, I think he could be productive. He would make big splash plays that could break the game open. J.J. Nelson was that guy in Arizona and in Buffalo. Again, never probably an 1,000-yard receiver, I don't think. But J.J. Nelson to me matches speed, height, frame, and probably the production level as well.
I don't love that one.
Okay.
I've been a big Xavier Worthy fan for a long time. In his original comp freshman year, I remember they compared him to Hollywood Brown. And
Yeah,
initially I
that's true.
liked that. But my comp for him is going to be Hollywood Brown, but not scared. Because that's Hollywood Brown's issue. Hollywood Brown is
Yeah.
terrified of contact. He doesn't want to go over the middle. But he is actually
Yeah.
a pretty good route runner. Um,
Yes.
the issue with him comes from the drops. Xavier Worthy doesn't have that big of a problem, but what Hollywood Brown is great at is tracking the football. Like that's what made
Mm-hmm.
him a first round pick. You could throw the
Yeah.
ball deep and he was going to be able to track it. Xavier Worthy is very similar. He can track the deep ball very well. He has similar speed to Hollywood Brown, probably faster. I would say
Yeah.
definitely faster.
Yeah. Definitely
But
faster. Yeah.
Hollywood is a guy that is just going to drop down when contact is coming. That's what he does. He's afraid of contact. Xavier
Mm-hmm.
Worthy is a guy that will break arm tackles. And
Mm-hmm.
that is like as a Ravens fan, that's what I always felt like was the one thing keeping Hollywood Brown from becoming like, oh, hey, this guy can be your number one wide receiver was that he was unwilling to like make those extra plays and he also couldn't hold on to enough catches. But I think
Right.
Xavier Worthy like is what people want Hollywood to be. I think that's like my
Yeah.
best comp for him is like the perfect version of Hollywood Brown is Xavier Worthy. But it's weird for speed guys in the NFL because most of the
Yeah. It
time
is.
when you get a guy that's generationally fast, they are just they are just going to be track guys that can't run
Yeah.
routes and aren't good in jump ball situations. But like Xavier Worthy's a route runner.
Yeah.
Like,
That's true. That is a good point. Yeah.
but also when you find those really fast route runners, everyone's like Tyreek Hill, and it's like I can't compare anyone to Tyreek Hill, so
No.
it's
He's
just
one
too
in a million.
difficult.
That's yeah. No.
Um, my next guy is going to be Will Shipley, and Will Shipley is a running back that I actually really like in this class. Good pass catcher, can run the ball well, and I hate to do this because I hate when people do it, but I think my best comp is a more pass catching Travis Etienne, and I hate doing that because they went to the same college, and people always love to
Okay.
do that. But I'm like, I
Yeah.
can't think of a guy that plays similar to him other than Travis
That's good.
Etienne.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But he's better out of the backfield catching the pass. So,
Yes. Yes.
he's probably a little bit worse of a runner. So it's kind of just like swapping it a little bit, but
He's
it's
kind of
weird.
like Walmart Christian McCaffrey. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
doesn't run as well, can catch passes really well in the backfield. But no, I like Travis Etienne. Hit Travis Etienne's comp was Alvin Kamara, who again is a really really good receiver out of the
Yep.
backfield. I don't hate Will Shipley to Travis Etienne at all. It is kind of funny though because they did both go to Clemson. They might have been teammates, probably not though. I don't think maybe I'm a year off, but regardless, yeah, Will Shipley, he's a guy not the best pure running back in the traditional sense, but a guy that you can keep on the field for third down. He's going to catch passes. He'll be a nice check down machine. I think Travis Etienne is a fine comparison. I don't have any issues with that at all. Another guy that I kind of struggle to come up with a comparison for because he's just so unique. Like we just don't see guys like this in the draft really ever. Brock Bowers, tight end from Georgia. It's like the best I could think of was like Shannon Sharp. I mean, just you get a guy who's just such a phenomenal athlete, plays like a receiver from the tight end position. I think Shannon, his intensity that he brought is probably what separates the two. But Brock Bowers is a phenomenal receiver. He's a phenomenal. He's a weapon. That's really what he is. You want him. You want to call him a tight end. You want to call him an H back. You want to call him a scat back. Whatever you want to call him. he's just a weapon, and it's going to be really, really hard for defenses to game plan against whoever has Brock Bowers. And it's also going to be really hard to match up with him because he's too big and too strong for DBs, but he's probably too fast for like linebackers and stuff. So I just think it's interesting. That was the whole problem with Shannon Sharp. What say you on the Shannon Sharp comp?
I like the Shannon Sharp comp, but I think we also have to remember Brock Bowers is a monster on the line. He can block.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he
Um,
is.
but again, there's not very many players in NFL history at the tight end position that were both.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
especially like Gronk. Like Gronk's the best tight end ever, but Gronk isn't like Brock Bowers isn't Gronk. Like Gronk was just he was so physical that's what his route running was. It was just like I'm bigger and stronger than everyone. Like Brock Bowers is more a little bit more finesse in that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and like when you think about like finesse route running tight ends, it's like Kelsey and Winslow and
Right.
Shannon Sharp, and it's like, yeah, but they weren't blockers. So it's
No.
tough to find a guy that's that athletic. Like Kittle, you could say Kittle, but Kittle's a better blocker,
Yeah, he
but
is.
not
Yeah.
as athletic. Um,
Right.
like a more
So it's hard.
athletic, more pass catching Kittle. I don't know. Brock Bowers is tough because when you get
is
the
tough.
generational prospects, what makes them generational is they do something no one else does. My next comp is Jared Verse, and this is another guy that's really tough, but trying to think of a guy that just has an unbelievably deep bag of pass rush moves, especially coming out of college, is unheard of. Like what makes Jared
Yeah.
Verse special is he has so many different moves. Even when you look at number one overall picks, historically that were pass rushers, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
Clowney wasn't hitting you with three different moves. Clowney was just a freak athlete that could bull rush you,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
Miles Garrett had the moves. I don't want to disrespect him in any way, but like you look at Trayvon Walker and Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau, those three that were seen as all top 10 picks and all did go top 10. None of them were going out there with all these different moves. You're just like, hey, we saw the potential. Maybe we can develop them. You don't find a guy like Jared Verse, which is, I think it's crazy that we're not talking about him going higher than, like, the lowest I see is 11, but the reason for that is every team in the top 10, like, drastically needs offensive help, and there's quarterbacks available and wide receivers that are really good.
Yeah.
So the pass rushers...
And tackles. Tackles too, yeah.
Yeah, and tackles are great as well, and so it's like, they just have to go offense. But Jared Verse is a borderline generational prospect, in my opinion. I think he's going to absolutely dominate in the NFL. My comp for him is another guy with unlimited skill set. That's Robert Mathis. I'm sorry, not Robert Mathis. Demarcus Ware.
Oh.
But it was also both.
Okay.
They were both my comp, and I didn't know which one to pick, and I guess I said both.
Both work, I guess. Yeah.
Like that's my comp. Is like guys that just bag of tricks bigger than anybody else. The Kyrie Irvings of the NFL.
I like it. Yeah, I dude, coming out of Troy, dude, Demarcus Ware had everything. Size, speed. He had a bull rush. He had a swing move. He had everything. Like, that's what's so hard to defend is when you have a good pass rush plan. Like, realistically, some guys have a really good bull rush. Some guys, like Dwight Freeney, have a really good spin move, right? Whatever. So you can almost anticipate those moves coming. When a guy's going to throw three good moves at you, it's really, really hard. It's like a pitcher, right? A lot of pitchers throw a really good fastball or they throw a really good slider. But it's really rare that a pitcher has a good fastball, a good curveball, and a good slider. Like, that's just so fucking hard to hit. So I like the comp. I think Demarcus Ware is really good. I probably prefer Demarcus Ware over Robert Mathis.
The thought was Mathis is smaller. And I think Verse is a little bit smaller than Demarcus Ware. And so it's like kind of in between them.
Yeah, size-wise, he probably is more Mathis. But I think play-style-wise, he's probably more Demarcus Ware. Which, for whoever gets him, you're getting... That's a Hall of Fame caliber player, right?
And you know where Demarcus Ware went?
Troy.
I believe he was 11th overall, which is right where I think he'll go. Jared Verse will go.
That would be quite the coincidence there. Let's talk about another pass rusher who the consensus big board, I would say, has this guy as edge number 1, Dallas Turner. Now, Dallas Turner, you could make an argument that Dallas Turner has the highest ceiling out of any edge rusher in this class. And the reason is because I think of my comparison, he's a lot like Brian Burns. Really quick, really quick, really fast. Has a really nice dip around the edge. Isn't the best against the run, can kind of get manhandled a little bit because he's a little bit lighter. But I think Dallas Turner, his comp to being Brian Burns, could be really good if you're running, probably probably a 3-4. Although I don't know, maybe you can run 4-3 with him because some people want him as an outside linebacker because he can actually play coverage decently well. So maybe you want him more as an outside linebacker that is a rush specialist type of thing, like a TJ Watt almost. But I don't know. You can also put him, hand in the dirt and have him line up. Again, like I said, he's not the best against the run, but he's really quick, and he's going to give slow tackles a really hard time.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad comp. I will disagree. I don't think he has the highest ceiling in the class, and I don't think he's
Yeah.
the edge rusher one in the class. I just talked about Jared first, but
Right.
I don't think Brian Burns is a bad comp. Brian Burns is one of those forgotten pass rushers, right? Like I think
Yeah.
Brian Burns and Danielle Hunter are kind of the two pass rushers that just aren't talked about, and they should be
Yeah.
because they're
Yeah.
very good, very quick
Yes.
off the edge. Um, and I guess people don't really like that. Like I guess people just want to see the bull rush, um,
Yeah.
and domination from the pass rushers, which I guess I understand, but
Yeah.
it's
You
not
can
that
win with
crazy.
finesse as an edge rusher. You can win with that kind of quick speed and dip and everything. So I
Yeah.
don't hate it.
And my next guy, which I don't see on the list, I probably should have read the list more closely, but it's another edge rusher. One of my favorite edge rushers in this class, not top three by any means, Darius Robinson, edge rusher out of Missouri. My comp for him is Matthew Judon. Um,
I like that. I like
but
that.
he's a weird guy because Darius Robinson is like just a monster edge rusher.
Yeah. Yeah.
6'5", like 270. He's going to be able to set the edge early. He is one of those guys that's just going to win with a bull rush. That is what he is at this point in his career. But
Yep.
he's so strong and so physical that it works for him. And it's not, I don't like drafting guys that are just physical beasts unless they're coming out of the SEC because
True.
that's the only competition. And you watch him against Georgia and you're like, these are future starting tackles in the NFL, and he is just manhandling them. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
this guy's legit. Like this guy can play.
Right. Right.
So I think Matthew Judon's a really good comp, a guy that fell because Judon did go to a smaller school, but he's gonna set the edge really well, and he is going to just be physical and strong, which you need in the NFL, trying to stop some of
Yep.
these running
You do.
backs.
You do. You do. Yeah, that's a good comp. Matthew Judon's a guy that I think people, again, like you said, forget about, but he's
Mhm.
quietly been one of the best pass rushers for a lot of years now. He got hurt last year, unfortunately, but he's getting up there in age a little bit. But yeah, he's really good. And I think you're right. I think Darius Robinson is a really good comparison to Matthew Judon. My last guy, a defender. Speaking of defenders from small schools, let's talk about Quin Mitchell. Now, I want to be very clear about my comparison here because I think that we see in the NFL sometimes players kind of open teams' eyes a little bit. I credit, you're gonna roll your eyes. I credit Russell Wilson really for teams realizing that short quarterbacks could be franchise caliber players. I credit a lot to that,
Drew
and
Brees.
I'm
What?
gonna I'm gonna also give more credit to the Seahawks because I'm gonna give credit to Tariq Woolen,
Oh
a
my
guy who
god.
is really fast, really long arms, really tall, coming out of a small school. The worry was he didn't play a lot of competition. He didn't, he wasn't going against NFL receivers, and that was true, and that's what got him down all the way to the 5th round. And Quinion Mitchell is not going to be that. He's going to be a first-round pick. Most people have him as a top corner in the class. Physically, he's very similar to Tariq Woolen. I think their weaknesses is they're both not physical. They are not good tacklers. They are not guys that are going to stick their nose in and stop the run, like opposite of Devin Witherspoon. So I think Quinion Mitchell is Reek Woolen, a guy that can play really sticky coverage, a guy that's good with the ball in the air, but not a guy that you want chasing down a ball carrier with a full head of steam.
I don't. I gotta say, I'm not a big Quinion Mitchell fan. Um, so you comparing him to a DB I don't really like his game. I kind of like that, but
You're fine.
My issue with him is I don't think we know if he can play tight coverage because he just played 10 yards off the line of scrimmage.
He did.
And so it's like he's really fast, and they just.
But that was kind of their defense, though.
Like they take underneath routes, so it's
quarters.
like it's really difficult to tell. Like I know a lot of people have concerns with Cooper DeJean because he didn't play a lot of competition, and it's like, okay, yeah, he was bullying them, but like they weren't NFL caliber wide receivers. Like at least we saw him on the line. You're not gonna be able to sit in off coverage every time unless you're in a defense like Seattle where they're running cover 3 bail. Yeah. So
which now we might not even be running cover 3. With
they're
Mike
definitely not
in.
running that anymore with Mike McDonald.
I will say though, I get your concern because he was playing a lot of off-man coverage and he was playing MAC offenses or whatever. He looked really good at the Senior Bowl, and that I think that opened a lot of eyes for people to be like, oh shit, against real competition in man coverage. He's running stride for stride with these guys. I mean, he was locking some dudes up that are going to go in the first and second round. So I think that was a very encouraging sign. That probably did more for his draft stock than I'd say a lot of his film at Toledo. But I think that he's re-quilling. So was there another player that you were going to do, McCarthy, or was that it?
I just want to mention Cooper DeJean, Lisan Al-Gaib. That's my comp.
Yeah.
The chosen one, the prophecy,
Paul Atreides,
the Messiah.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call him. That's my guy.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, with that being said, with that very realistic comp out of the way, I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you guys for watching another video. McCarthy, I appreciate you for coming on the show and giving your comps, even though they were all incorrect, even though I agree with most of them. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.